So after a painful 3-year wait, Nolan is finally back with his new film, Dunkirk. Which, you know what? It's probably one of the best films of this year.
And not just that, one of the best war films, one of the greatest films I have ever witnessed.
Just keep blowing that up because it's true. This thing is a
masterpiece.
Woo!
So Dunkirk is the next film in Christopher Nolan's filmography, and this thing is just a thing of wonders. My goodness, what is it about? Well, Dunkirk is about the evacuation of British, Belgian, and French soldiers that are trapped on a beach in Dunkirk, surrounded by Germans, and that's all we're going to tell you, because if that's all you know, then that's a fantastic way to go into the film, because that's pretty much how we went in.
This is truly one of the most spectacular achievements in filmmaking in the history of film.
And because it's not even just like, it's not as if he's built to this moment, I feel, in many ways.
Everything he's ever done, everyone he's ever worked with has come together here to create something that's just...
It's as big as a blockbuster and as experimental as an indie. And to pull that off is just unfathomable.
Just looking at it at that level alone, this film is an achievement of proportions which I don't think many people that even watch this movie will be able to wrap their head around. Try to tell me when you watch this movie, because you will, it's one of those cases where this is a must-see film. Try to tell me how much of this film is visual effects. Try to tell me that something that you're seeing is not real. Yes, this film had a fantastically massive budget, but this has got to be some of the most spectacular photography, production design, and just delivery of an immersive experience I have ever seen. This truly is a movie that absorbs you and just pulls you along for this ride, this real struggle from survival that's basically from the get-go. This movie just kind of charges along in a way that just, I can't even get my head around the fact that this movie exists.
I think if you were to view this story from above and just kind of look at it, like we look back in history and we just see this Dunkirk event, it's quite a simple event, you know?
Yeah.
But what Nolan has done here is he's structured the hell out of this film in a way that has never been done before. And we don't want to get into spoilers, but you know, just the way he's structured this story is unlike any other war film, unlike any other film. It's insane.
He's taking stuff that he has learned across the last, almost 20 years and bringing it into just complete fruition. There's kind of stuff here that's done on a story level that just is not seen. I'm going to keep coming back to the fact that this movie pretty much blows open what's possible for blockbusters, and I'm praying that people see this movie, because if we see it and we say that yes, this is okay, this is what we want, we're going to start being treated like a smarter audience. And yes, 2017 has already delivered that for us with blockbusters that have been better than I can remember in recent memory, but this here is the pinnacle of that kind of this season.
I think it's just because someone who works in such a fictional world so often, with The Prestige or Interstellar and Inception,
Batman films,
Yeah, to see him come into a realistic world with, a story that is true and then apply his kind of that skill set that is just a match that somehow has created something that I can't wrap my head around still.
Yeah. It's crazy because I think if some people, you're trying to pinpoint a Nolan film, you're like, what makes a Nolan film? You can't watch a trailer for his film and go, boom, that's distinctly Nolan, because you don't know what's happening to you until you're actually there watching that story unfold. This is him in a way we've hardly ever seen before. There's no exposition, there's no setups, there's hardly any dialogue, there's no explaining of anything. The movie just happens all the time. There's across the hour 50 that it runs for, there's just pretty much no dialogue. It all just happens visually. This is actually just an art film that's I think it's gonna challenge a lot of audiences, because they're like, no, I need to know stuff. I need to tell me. But that's not the point. You're here for the struggle for survival, and that is what matters. At the end of the day, all the words fall away, and it's just about trying to stay alive.
And when you can lock on to the fact of what Nolan has done here, then you can understand each aspect of this film, whether it be the sound editing, the soundtrack, the acting, the way this film is shot. You will just understand it in a better light. And my God, let's just crack into it. Let's crack into it.
Now, the thing here that really kind of started blowing my mind from basically as soon as this film started was the sound design. Basically, it kind of starts really chilled, and then once bullets start flying, I was literally kicked back in my seat. This is the best audio design, and this is no exaggeration here. This is the best audio design I have ever heard. This screaming of planes coming through, the explosions, the sound of the water, the sound of just this soundscape is phenomenal, and props to the people that put it together, because this is it is the best sounding film I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's horrific. It's horrific to hear as well, because it puts you right there with the soldiers and you're feeling the same way they are about their surroundings. And talking about sound, Hans Zimmer, my God, he used violins for the sound of airplanes.
Yeah, it's like this tearing,
there is so many elements at play here from Hans to create one of the greatest soundtracks you'll ever hear in a film. Like, he's used, elements from Interstellar and Inception and things he's learned
everything
over time.
he's ever done has come together for this.
Plus new elements to create this soundtrack that is something of such
ticking
fury.
Of a clock. It kind of it drives the whole movie. When you've got a movie that's got hardly any dialogue, it's using that soundtrack to really propel the film. And that's not to say anything against like the editing, because the editing here is fantastic. Between the way the editing intertwines with the soundtrack, you just have a film that's paced just brilliantly. This film doesn't feel like it has a first act, second act, third act. Hardly even feels like it has kind of scenes. It all just blends into one assault of just pure cinema. And if let's roll into the cinematography then, because Hoyt van Hoytema did Interstellar, he did Her, he did Spectre. He is one of the best working cinematographers today, and this film looks gorgeous. They've done a smart thing here between the production designer Nathan Crowley, Christopher Nolan, and Van Hoytema. They've gone, let's lock it down to a specific color palette: grays, brown, blue, white. Everything on that side of the spectrum, everything you're seeing kind of behind us right now, that is what the film works off, and it creates this kind of really oppressive atmosphere over the whole film. It just feels so dense.
And then what he does with the camera as well is just absolutely exceptional. I mean, the composition
here throughout right up in your
the entire time. You get shots that are just things of beauty and things of almost paintings. Then you get shots that just work in action sequences.
Claustrophobic and choking.
We've got the camera locking down to the side of an airplane, or we've got, the camera tipping upside down. So the screen's filled with water as someone's drowning. Like, it's just constant. There is so much at play here from the cinematography.
So much. And it's all, I guess, in service of keeping it real. Like, I cannot understate. There was like one point in the entire film where I went, hey, that might actually be VFX, but it usually goes the other way around. You're like, oh, that might actually be real. No, that's stunning that this film felt so authentic top to bottom. It's because everyone involved cared so much in making this happen.
And the acting across the board here is something that really needs to be talked about, because I think a lot of people are going to skim over it, because at a ground level, it's realistic, it's natural, and it just gets the job done. But there is so much more at play here. You've got your experienced actors. You've got Mark Rylance, you've got Tom Hardy, you've got Kenneth Branagh, you've got Cillian Murphy, which allow for such emotional depth and that they really deliver in scenes where you need them to.
There's a lot of weight.
Yeah, and then you've got the younger actors, like the new kid Fionn Whitehead, and we've got Harry Styles, which just allow the audience to kind of feel for, these soldiers in their position, and it puts us on a ground level with just simply boys at war.
As soon as you see that they're kids, you don't need a setup, you don't need the backstory, you don't need anything. All that matters to you is that they get out of there alive. Barely any characters have names. I think there's like 2-3 characters maximum in the entire film that are named, and even then it doesn't matter. This isn't a film that has to spend time explaining, this person has this, they've got a family, they've got a wife. None of that shit matters, because it just shows you in a situation where you're like, I hope these people get out, boom, you're attached, you can run with it.
And a lot of people are probably going to have problems with that, because they're like, I didn't really have the character, so I couldn't really believe his backstory. 400,000 people on a beach at Dunkirk. Are you serious? Do you need a freaking backstory?
This is an
event that happened in history. We are living in a time where this happened. Do you need a backstory for every character and film you see? My God, lock into the intent of this film. I'm going to keep going here, but it makes me so emotional when, people are going to complain about that aspect, when you just think about the realism of what they've achieved here.
Do you not think that Christopher Nolan would not have been aware that he's not giving his characters backstory? It's not the kind of thing that was overlooked, and then people are going, oh God, I'm so glad people told me after I made the film. He knows that. He's so confident in what he's done, and it works, that it doesn't even matter. You guys just have to engage and think.
And think about it, casting-wise, absolutely unbelievable, because you've got characters that don't have a backstory, so what do they need? They need to be visually recognizable on screen. So when you get to a later event in the film and you go, oh my God, who is that, who is it, who is that?
Everyone's
you
gonna
instantly know.
And the only other flaw I see people perceiving to be a flaw is the fact that, I got lost in a few of the kind of claustrophobic action scenes. It's perhaps that's the point. Characters don't know what's happening, they can't work out a way to get out of the situation that they're in. Maybe you're supposed to feel that way. It's as simple as that, guys. This is one of those movies that if you do not think that it is a good movie, I don't care if you enjoy it or not, but if you're not able to walk out of that and go, that was actually something special, I didn't dig it that much, but it was actually I respect that I just respect it. Then fuck. I just don't even know what to say to you, because this is an achievement that needs to be recognized on every level. The other perceived flaw with this film, which mind you is the most subjective thing I've ever heard, is that this film is not rated R. It can't be violent enough. How can you show war if it's not violent enough? Well, aside from the fact that that's really strange that you want to watch people getting blown up in the most violent way possible. I mean, think about that for a second. That's on you. This film more than nails that claustrophobia, that sense of violence, that sense of impeding death 24/7 in this film. Like, it honestly just hangs over the entire thing. It's horrifying. It does that in spades. It actually really nails it, even with a PG rating.
And I've just got to say, you know, like, there's so many things. I could just go on talking about this film forever. But really, like, I think the one thing that really hurt me and hit me the most by the end of it, and I was sitting there, like, in shock, crying, and I couldn't even speak for a while. It's kind of the apocalyptic nature of Dunkirk. The fact that people survived, but it was kind of, they then had to ask themselves, what's the point in going on when there's all this death around them, and like all they did was survive, you know, the things they had to do.
There was nothing they could do to fight back. They were just sitting there getting picked off, trying to get away from this place. Like, that's nuts.
It was just men on men in both sides. Everyone was just trying to survive, and it just gives you such a raw and visceral look at it, and my God, it's quite something.
And so now if you take all these elements that we've talked about, all these different things, and add them together, it'll show you that the brilliance of this movie is in the fact that it is just completely uncompromising. It is a full force artistic vision, disguised as a blockbuster. It's this deeply human film about that raw need to just survive, to keep going on, and basically to know, after you've been in a situation where there's death all around you, what can you do to keep moving on from that? And I'm so stunned by this movie. I think it was more than we, as people who were super hyped for it, could even wrap our heads around at the time. It's just surpassed that on every single level.
And I suppose we should finish up, because we will just talk forever, but this film has done us in. Dunkirk has done us in, and there is just no other way to score this film other than a 10.
Yeah, it's a 10. I mean, I don't know. I can't fault it. I love this movie so much on both those levels. Like, it just is everything.
One
when you
of
see
the greatest experiences
there's
of my life.
so much we haven't even tapped into in this video, and I hope that you guys that see it and that appreciate it to the level that we do, who understand what this movie was going for, can appreciate every single element while it was going past, while I was watching it. I was just thinking to myself, I can't actually appreciate everything that's being done in this one viewing. I need to see it again and again and again to give it the love it deserves. So that was our completely exasperated review of Dunkirk. Have you seen it yet?
Did you like it? Of course you did!
Yeah.
Oh my God, of course you did!
And if you hate it, I don't really want to hear.
Ah! Did you like this video?
Of course you did.
Are you craving more banter?
If so, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel right there somewhere.
And don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter, all at Breaking Banter.